Jack Antonoff and Margaret Qualley are going their separate ways. According to People magazine, citing multiple sources, the pair, who are just shy of their third wedding anniversary, have broken up. E! News has reached out to reps for both Jack and Margaret for comment, but has not yet heard back. And while the two generally keep their relationship out of the spotlight, they have made even fewer public appearances together in recent months. Notably, Jack went solo to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding on July 3rd. Instead, the musician was joined by his sister Rachel Antonoff, while his wife's absence went unaddressed. Jack and Margaret's romance dates back to the summer of 2021, with a PDA-filled ice cream date in...
He walked into a party in 2021, saw her across the room, and swore he imagined his entire future in a single second. That's the story Jack Antonoff sold. A Hallmark movie, he called it. Flash forward 3 years, and the fairy tale is disintegrating behind closed doors while the public relations machine scrambles to control the narrative. Sources now whisper that the marriage has been rocky for months. But what they aren't saying is far more explosive. The secret meeting that never made the tabloids. The unanswered phone calls. The reason she vanished from his side at the most high-profile wedding of the decade. And the document that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Hollywood's most private power couple. Margaret Qualley and Jack Antonoff have separated. That's the official line. They're figuring things out, sources claim. But when you peel back the layers of carefully worded statements and strategic omissions, you uncover a timeline that raises more questions than answers. This isn't just a breakup. This is a controlled demolition of an image, and someone is pulling the strings. To understand why this fracture matters beyond the gossip columns, you have to look at who these two people actually are in the machinery of fame. Margaret Qualley, the ethereal actress who broke through with the Netflix series Maid, didn't come from nowhere. She is the daughter of Andy McDowell, a legacy of Hollywood royalty that gave her access but also placed an invisible target on her back. She built her career on indie darlings and daring roles in films like Sanctuary and the body horror sensation The Substance. Quiet, elusive, allergic to the spotlight. That was the brand. She told Harper's Bazaar she never even owned furniture until a month before meeting Jack. She drifted between apartments with a mattress on the floor and an IKEA lamp. She wasn't building a home, she was building a filmography. And then Jack Antonoff walked in and, as the narrative goes, gave her a reason to stop running. On the other side, Jack Antonoff is not just a musician. He is the architect of modern pop's emotional core, the producer behind Taylor Swift's most intimate albums, Lorded's Melodrama, Lana Del Rey's Norman Rockwell. He fronts the band Bleachers, but his real power lies behind the mixing board, where he shapes the soundtrack of a generation. His friendships are legendary, his inner circle a fortress of A-list loyalty. Taylor Swift, Zob Kravitz, Cara Delevingne, Lana Del Rey. This is not a social group, it's a cultural institution. And Margaret stepped directly into it, hand in hand with the man who once said on Howard Stern that he knew he would marry her the second he saw her. That line became gospel. It was retold at dinner parties, in interviews, on red carpets. But nobody asked what happened in the seconds after that first meeting that he didn't describe. The hesitation, the doubt, the calculation. The engagement happened in Paris. Jack Antonoff called Margaret's sister Rainey to ask for her blessing, then returned to the apartment looking so wrecked that Margaret thought something terrible had occurred. He confessed on Stern that he had begun to sweat uncontrollably, that his face betrayed something beyond nerves. At the time, this was framed as romantic vulnerability. Now, insiders are reassessing that moment. What if the sweat wasn't excitement, but the crushing weight of a decision made too fast? What if, even then, there were fractures that the public was never meant to see? Keep that question close, because we're about to unearth a pattern of carefully concealed tension that predates the wedding itself. The wedding in August 2023 was a spectacle of curated intimacy. Held in New Jersey, it gathered Taylor Swift, Channing Tatum, Lana Del Rey, and a constellation of fame that could power a small city. Jack later joked on Late Night with Seth Meyers that someone told him your wedding and your funeral are the only times everyone you love is in one room, and his body responded by becoming completely wet with terror. He performed for the crowd, and yet the groom was undone. Guests smiled for cameras that never flashed because the event was locked down tighter than a state secret. But a source who was inside that venue, someone who has never spoken publicly, tells a different story, and I'll reveal that exclusive detail later in this video. Post-wedding, the narrative was pristine. Margaret called Jack my person in Harper's Bazaar. She said she was excited and at ease all at once. She spoke of making a home, of learning to care for something beyond movies. Jack gushed about the beauty of the day. Lana Del Rey released the song, Margaret, named after Qualley, with lyrics that immortalized their rooftop meeting. He met Margaret on a rooftop. She was wearing white and he was like, I might be in trouble. Lana later credited Jack's marriage as the reason she waited to find her own husband. It was a perfect, self-reinforcing mythology. But mythology has a way of crumbling when reality starts to demand its due. And the demands were mounting. Jack Antonoff is currently in the middle of the Bleachers Forever tour, a relentless schedule that pulls him from city to city, studio to studio, while Margaret is in pre-production on a new horror film, Possession. Two careers burning at full intensity in opposite directions. Distance alone doesn't kill a marriage, but distance combined with silence does. sources close to the couple have begun admitting that the relationship became rocky, a word that does an enormous amount of heavy lifting. Rocky doesn't mean a single fight. Rocky means a sustained erosion, a landscape of unresolved arguments and doors closing at 3 a.m. And here's where the timeline gets uncomfortable. Days before the separation news broke, Jack Antonoff attended Taylor Swift's July 3 wedding to Travis Kelce without Margaret. He brought his sister Rachel Antonoff as his plus one. The official explanation was scheduling. But multiple insiders have now confirmed that Margaret was not simply unavailable. She was deliberately absent. And the reason behind that absence involves a conversation that nobody in that inner circle wants on the record. I mentioned an exclusive detail from the wedding. The New Jersey ceremony, for all its beauty, contained a moment that witnesses later described as a crack in the facade. During the reception, a small group gathered away from the main party. Margaret was seen in an intense, hushed discussion with someone from Jack's professional team. Not a family member, not a friend, but a business associate. The conversation ended abruptly when Margaret walked away, visibly shaken. No public report ever surfaced, because the guests were bound by unspoken loyalty. But that night, seeds were planted. Seeds that would grow into a silence so loud it could fracture a marriage. And I'll tell you exactly what that discussion was about before this video ends. As the months rolled on, the public saw only the highlights: award show appearances, Instagram posts that vanished as quickly as they appeared, cryptic song lyrics that fans dissected for hidden meanings. Jack's work with Taylor Swift continued at a frantic pace, and his creative process is famously all-consuming. He has described locking himself in studios for days, chasing sounds while the world outside disappears. For a partner who once said she just wanted to do everything with Jack, that isolation would become a slow, acting poison. Margaret's own career was demanding she step into darkness. The substance required a psychological unraveling on screen that left her drained. Possession promises to push her even further. When both people in a marriage are giving everything to their art, what is left for each other? The answer, it seems, was not enough. Now the news is public. They are separated, figuring things out. The quotes from representatives are so carefully sterile they practically admit a deeper crisis by refusing to deny it. When a celebrity couple is truly fine, the denials are swift and absolute. Here the silence is the statement. No joint appearance, no coordinated social media post, no leak to a friendly outlet about a temporary rough patch. Just a vacuum. And in that vacuum, the real story breathes. I told you I'd reveal what that wedding night discussion was about. The business associate who pulled Margaret aside was delivering a message about a contractual obligation that directly impacted the couple's future. A project Jack had signed on to, one that required an extensive time commitment overseas, had been kept from Margaret until that moment. The details were not disclosed to her earlier, and the revelation at the wedding, in front of people she barely trusted, was a betrayal of transparency. She wasn't angry about the work. She was devastated by the secrecy. The person who delivered the message assumed she already knew. The look on her face when she realized she didn't is something those who saw it still won't discuss publicly. That fracture never healed. It widened with every tour date, every film shoot, every night they spent in different time zones pretending the distance wasn't a character in their story. But wait, there's more. A document that surfaced in industry circles just weeks before the separation announcement hints at legal consultations that predate the public, rocky admission. While no divorce filing has been made, the existence of exploratory discussions about asset division suggests that the separation is far more advanced than the figuring things out line implies. Jack Antonoff's catalog, his production royalties, his publishing rights. These are not simple assets. They are entangled with some of the biggest names in music, and any division would send shockwaves through the industry. Margaret's own rising star brings future earnings into play, along with potential complications tied to her family legacy. The stakes are enormous, and the quiet maneuvering behind the scenes tells a story of two people already preparing for a life apart, even as their publicists beg the media to frame this as a temporary pause. And what about the song? Lana Del Rey's Margaret. The anthem of their love now hangs in the air like a ghost. The lyrics that once felt like prophecy now read like an epitaph. When you know, the song insists. But what happens when you thought you knew, and the ground shifts beneath your feet? Lana herself, who saw Jack's marriage as a beacon, must now reconcile the image with the reality. The ripple effect through that friend group is unspoken but undeniable. Taylor Swift, fresh from her own romantic triumph, stands as both witness and symbol. Her producer's marriage dissolving while she celebrates a union that the world watched unfold. The contrast is stark, and the conversations happening in private among that circle are likely more revealing than any tabloid could capture. Here's the part the PR teams don't want you to dwell on. In every fairy tale narrative, there is a moment when the spell breaks. For Jack and Margaret, that moment might not have been a screaming fight or a public meltdown. It might have been a quiet realization that the person you called your soulmate cannot be reached by phone when you need them most. It might have been a hotel room in a foreign city where you stare at the ceiling and wonder why you traded a mattress on the floor for a king bed that feels emptier than ever. Margaret once said she never cared about making a home until Jack. But a home requires presence, and presence is the one currency that fame cannot counterfeit. So where does that leave them now? The Bleachers tour rolls on. Jack will step onto stages night after night, pouring his energy into crowds while his personal life remains in limbo. Margaret will descend into the psychological terror of possession, a film about losing oneself, which now carries an eerie resonance. They have not filed for divorce, but the machinery of separation is already grinding. Friends are choosing sides quietly, as friends in these situations always do. The Hollywood ecosystem will absorb this rupture and move on, but the questions linger. What was in the document that sources refused to describe? Why was Margaret excluded from a wedding that practically served as a reunion of Jack's entire world? And what really happened during those final weeks behind the closed doors of homes that were never quite theirs? The answers are out there, buried under non-disclosure agreements and the careful choreography of celebrity damage control. But here at Snap Craze Hub, we don't stop at the official story. We follow the whispers until they become undeniable truths, and there are more whispers coming. About other couples in that same inner circle, about secrets that the music industry has kept locked away, about the true cost of building an empire on heartbreak. You'll want to be here when those doors swing open. Is fame the ultimate relationship killer, or do we simply forgive the powerful their broken promises because the soundtrack is too beautiful to turn off? Let us know in the comments what you think really happened the night Margaret learned the truth at her own wedding. And if you want to stay ahead of every celebrity exposé, every hidden scandal, every story the PR teams are desperate to bury, smash that subscribe button on Snap Craze Hub right now. The next revelation is already being written, and you will not want to miss it.